Hello, my name is Nick Rose, and I was privileged to be a part of the celebration of Black History Month sponsored by the Barryville Area Arts Association in February of 2017. The exhibit included prints of work by black artists from the days of slavery all throughout the civil rights movement, as well as including a display by local contemporary artists. The piece you're looking at now is Portrait of Adelia Ellender by Joshua Johnson, dated 1804. Johnson is probably the best-known African-American artist of the early Republic, and like all artists who were slaves, he did not get to choose his subjects. Johnson specialized in children and family portraits, mostly upper-class whites like this woman in Portrait of Isabella Taylor, dated 1805. In The Westwood Children, which he painted in 1807, Johnson seems to have really captured the discomfort the children were probably feeling posing for him. Although over 80 of Johnson's signed works have remained, only 2 are of black persons. When the judges at the Philadelphia Centennial Exhibition of 1876 found out that the artist who painted this piece, Full Moon Over Harbor, was black, they tried to take back the award they had given him. His fellow artists all stood up for him, so Edward Mitchell Bannister's award was reinstated. The incident ended up working well for him, as it brought his work to public attention. Bannister usually painted landscapes, but we really like his 1869 effort, Newspaper Boy. It might be that this racially ambiguous child was his one and only attempt to confront racial identity issues directly. The most prominent black painter of his day, Robert Scott Duncan, directly benefited from the civil rights struggle of the 19th century. In 1853, the Freeman's Aid Society of Ohio sent him abroad to study, and his art benefited greatly from his time in Europe. The painting shown here, Pompeii, dated 1855, contains elements of darkness that can be understood in terms of the political landscape in America at the time, almost at war in bleeding Kansas. Looked at this way, the ruins of Pompeii, though bathed in light, are the remnants of a civilization whose time has passed, and this can be understood possibly as the slave South, while Vesuvius smolders on the horizon, possibly representing the threat of civil war. As the Civil War dragged on, Duncanson's paintings got a darker, heavier feel to them. For example, this is Waterfall at Mount Morency, dated 1864. These early American painters laid the groundwork for others who came after them. Here's Into Bondage by Aaron Douglas, dated 1936. In this powerful image of oppression, Douglas has encoded hope. There is a beam of light, and the circles suggest African and African-American song. A man's powerful silhouette crosses the horizon in a sign of strength. Douglas was commissioned to create a series of murals for the Texas Centennial Exposition in Dallas in 1936, and he's considered the leader of the Harlem Renaissance, a cultural phenomenon that promoted African and African-American culture as a source of pride and inspiration. In 1927, James Weldon Johnson, a key figure in the Harlem Renaissance, published God's Trombones, 7 Negro sermons in verse. It was inspired by the African-American preachers whose eloquent orations Johnson viewed as an art form. His literary effort was aimed at communicating not only the subject of the sermons, but the passion with which they were delivered. This is God's Trombone by Aaron Douglas, 1939. The preachers were God Almighty's instruments on earth, God's trombones. Impressed with Douglas's illustrations, Johnson asked him to illustrate a book of poems he was working on, and later Johnson put them together as large oil paintings. This is Interior by Horace Pitman, dated 1944. Although the people in this painting aren't interacting, the mood here is warm and comfortable. Too poor to afford art supplies, Horace won a magazine drawing contest at the age of 10. The prize? A box of crayons, water paints, and brushes. Pitman was born just 25 years after the abolition of slavery, and after serving in World War I, he worked as a porter, furniture packer, and iron molder. Mother, by Charles Wilbert White, dated 1945, is also known by another title, Awaiting His Return. The woman's face is easily seen as a mother waiting for a loved one to return from service in the war. The cubist faceting communicates a quiet strength. Like many of White's portraits, Mother depicts anonymous people dealing with situations common to the black experience. His faces show real human emotion and endurance in the face of obstacles. Moving to New York City to complete his education at NYU, Romare Bearden was a social worker by day and an artist by night. This is Tomorrow May Be Far Away, dated 1967. This collage includes the elements known to Bearden as a child in rural North Carolina: train travel, cigarette smoke, and grown-ups lost in thought. The train could suggest the Underground Railroad or the Northern Migration after the end of slavery. Barclay Leonard Hendrix was inspired by Flemish master Anthony van Dyck. This is his Sir Charles alias Willie Harris, dated 1972. He was hired to create copies of Van Dyck's work for the National Gallery of Art, but soon realized he couldn't copy another artist's work, no matter how much he liked it. This painting was inspired by Van Dyck's red coat. It's said to include the three muses, usually portrayed as females by the old European masters. Whether or not they meant to, black artists on display here communicated the challenges peculiar to them at their time in history. Inspired by his youth in the segregated American South, Benny Andrews created a body of work including scenes from the Civil Rights Movement, American Indian relocation, anti-war protests, and other cultural struggles. Between his obviously political statements, he painted everyday people in everyday life. There is an authenticity of emotion in his work that speaks to the human condition in times of conflict. Andrews was an activist who founded the Black Emergency Cultural Coalition, which demanded better representation in museums and art history books. His 1996 creation, Confinement 1, seems more charming than some of his earlier work, until you notice that the guitar player is still a prisoner. The Way to the Promised Land, dated 1994, was an oil on canvas with painted fabric collage. Our exhibit provided just a small sampling from the thousands of works we had to choose from, and should certainly not be considered a complete account. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. Please visit our website, BarryvilleAreaArts.org, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Artists Market Community Center, and like our Facebook pages to keep in touch with our latest projects.